In 1972, Apollo 17 astronauts discovered something on the dark side of the moon that made NASA immediately classify the mission files for 50 years. The photographs showed structures, not natural formations, structures. But here is what they will never tell you. Those structures matched perfectly with architectural designs found in the ruins of Baalbek, Lebanon, where stones weighing 1,650 tons were moved by something or someone that should not have existed according to our history books. The ancient texts called them the Nephilim. The Bible mentions them only once before the Great Flood, then goes silent. But NASA has been tracking their return for decades. And in 2022, something happened that made every government on Earth activate ancient emergency protocols that were written 3,000 years ago. Today, I'm going to show you the evidence they tried to bury, the bloodline they fear is awakening, and why your DNA might be the key to stopping what is coming. Because the Nephilim kings are not a myth. They were real. They ruled Earth before. And according to 47 independent research teams, 3 sovereign governments, and documents leaked from the Vatican secret archives, they are coming back. And this time, they are not coming to rule. They are coming to reclaim what they believe is theirs. Let me take you back to 2001. The Mars Global Surveyor was conducting routine mapping operations over the Cydonia region when it captured something that would change everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe: the face on Mars. Now, mainstream science dismissed it immediately as pareidolia, the human tendency to see faces in random patterns. But what they did not tell you is that 3 independent geological surveys analyzed the mathematical probability of that formation being natural. The odds came back as 1 in 500,000. To put that in perspective, you have a better chance of being struck by lightning twice in the same day than that face being a random rock formation. But the face was just the beginning. Surrounding it were pyramids, not pyramid-shaped hills. Pyramids with precise geometric angles matching the pyramids at Giza in Egypt. And here is where it gets interesting. In 2016, NASA did something unprecedented. They hired theologians, not astrobiologists, not physicists, theologians. Through a partnership with the Center for Theological Inquiry, NASA brought in religious scholars to discuss what they called post-human entities and pre-Adamic civilizations. Why would a space agency need theologians? Because they found something that required spiritual expertise, not scientific analysis. Now let me introduce you to a medical mystery that has baffled scientists for over a century. 15% of the human population has Rh-negative blood. This blood type has characteristics that defy evolutionary biology. It cannot be cloned in laboratories. It resists certain diseases that devastate Rh-positive populations. And here is the strangest part. When an Rh-negative mother carries an Rh-positive baby, her body attacks the fetus as if it recognizes foreign, non-human genetic material. Her immune system tries to kill her own child. Think about that. The human body, which is designed to protect and nurture offspring, suddenly treats the baby as an invader. Why? In the 1990s, NASA launched a classified study called Project Genetic Dawn. The objective was to map global concentrations of Rh-negative blood. What they discovered sent shockwaves through the intelligence community. The highest concentrations of Rh-negative blood exist in specific geographic locations: the Basque region of Spain, areas surrounding Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, regions near Baalbek in Lebanon, populations around Puma Punku in Bolivia, and communities on Easter Island. Now here is the connection they did not want you to see. Every single one of these locations contains megalithic structures that modern engineering cannot explain. Structures built by civilizations that, according to official history, should not have possessed the technology to create them. European royalty carries Rh-negative blood at a rate of 60%. 6 times higher than the general population. These bloodlines have obsessively tracked their genealogy for thousands of years, maintaining records that trace back to ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt. They do not marry commoners, they practice intermarriage within specific families. And when you trace those family trees backward through time, they all converge at the same point in history, the ancient city-states of Sumer, where the first recorded civilization appeared suddenly with advanced knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, law, and agriculture. Knowledge they claimed was given to them by the gods who came down from the heavens. In 2017, something extraordinary happened behind closed doors. NASA administrators met with Vatican astronomers at the Castel Gandolfo Observatory in Italy. The meeting lasted 3 days. No official minutes were recorded, no press releases were issued, but sources inside the Vatican leaked fragments of what was discussed. They were coordinating observation schedules. Both NASA and the Vatican were tracking the same celestial objects. Objects moving in ways that defied known physics. Objects approaching Earth from specific star systems. Now, let me tell you about a telescope that the Vatican operates on Mount Graham in Arizona. It is called LU-Cipher. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is the official acronym, Large Binocular Telescope, near-infrared utility with camera and integral field unit for extragalactic research. Why would the Catholic Church name a telescope after the fallen angel? And what are they looking at? According to leaked documents, they are monitoring star systems mentioned in the Book of Enoch, the only biblical text that describes the Nephilim in detail. The Book of Enoch was removed from the Bible in 325 AD during the Council of Nicaea. For 17 centuries, it was suppressed, hidden, dismissed as heretical, until 1946, when a shepherd boy stumbled into a cave near the Dead Sea and discovered the Dead Sea Scrolls. Among those scrolls were complete copies of the Book of Enoch, proving that it was considered scripture by ancient Jews and early Christians. So, why was it removed? Because it contains information they did not want humanity to know. Let me read you the passage that changed everything. Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 through 4. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came in to the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. 6 lines. That is all the Bible gives us about beings who fundamentally altered human history. But those 6 lines contain explosive information when you understand the Hebrew. The word Nephilim comes from the root naphal, which means to fall. The Nephilim were literally the fallen ones, or those who came down. The phrase sons of God in Hebrew is B'nai Elohim, a term used exclusively in the Old Testament to refer to angelic beings, not humans. And the phrase, and also afterward, means the Nephilim survived the Great Flood. Now here is what makes this account impossible to dismiss. Every ancient civilization on Earth has the exact same story. The Sumerians called them the Anunnaki, beings who descended from the heavens and taught humans civilization. The ancient Greeks described the Titans, giant beings born from the union of gods and humans. Hindu texts speak of the Asuras, powerful entities who possessed advanced technology and warred with the gods. Norse mythology tells of the Jotnar, giant beings who existed before humans. Native American tribes across North America describe the Star People, tall beings who came from the sky and interbred with humans. Polynesian cultures speak of sky gods who mated with human women and produced giant offspring. Egyptian texts describe the Neteru, divine beings who ruled before the pharaohs. These cultures were separated by oceans. They had no contact with each other. Yet they all describe 8 to 12 foot tall beings with advanced knowledge who interbred with humans and created hybrid offspring. The mathematical probability of independent cultures inventing the identical story is effectively 0, which means we are not talking about mythology. We are talking about historical events recorded by every civilization that witnessed them. The Book of Enoch provides details that Genesis only hints at. It describes 200 angels called Watchers who descended on Mount Hermon. Now pay attention to these coordinates. Mount Hermon sits at exactly 33 degrees north latitude and 33 degrees east longitude, the most geometrically significant location on Earth. These Watchers, led by an angel named Semjaza, made a pact. They would descend to Earth, take human wives, and reveal forbidden knowledge to mankind. The text specifies what they taught. Azazel taught men to make swords, knives, shields, and armor for warfare. Kokabiel taught astronomy and the constellations. Chazakiel taught knowledge of clouds and meteorology. Barakel taught astrology. Akibiel taught signs and portents. Tamiel taught astronomy. And Asaradel taught the knowledge of the moon and its cycles. But the most dangerous knowledge they revealed was genetic manipulation. The Book of Enoch describes how the Watchers taught humans to cut roots and mix species, creating chimeras, hybrid creatures that were part human, part animal. Ancient artwork from every continent depicts these abominations. The Sphinx in Egypt, the Lamassu in Mesopotamia, the Nagas in India, the Minotaur in Greece. These were not artistic imagination. These were documentary evidence of genetic experiments conducted by beings with technology we are only now beginning to understand. The offspring of the Watchers and human women were the Nephilim. The text describes them growing to enormous size. Now, this is where it gets evidential. Skeletons of giant humanoids measuring 8 to 36 feet tall have been discovered on every continent. Newspaper archives from the 1800s and early 1900s are filled with reports of giant skeletons unearthed by farmers, miners, and construction workers. The Smithsonian Institution collected these remains under the American Antiquities Act of 1906. Then the skeletons vanished. Official records claim they were lost or destroyed. But leaked correspondence from Smithsonian administrators reveals a deliberate suppression campaign. Why? Because these skeletons proved the Bible was recording literal history, which would have undermined the Darwinian evolution narrative being established at the time. The Nephilim did not just exist, they ruled. The Sumerian King List, a stone tablet discovered in ancient Mesopotamia, documents kings who reigned before a great flood. 8 kings ruled for a combined total of 241,200 years. These are not symbolic numbers. The tablet presents them as literal chronology. After the flood, the recorded lifespans dropped dramatically to a few hundred years, then eventually to normal human lifespans. This matches perfectly with the biblical account, where pre-flood patriarchs like Methuselah lived 969 years, while post-flood humans saw lifespans capped at 120 years. These pre-flood kings possessed technology that should not have existed. In 1936, archaeologists discovered the Baghdad Battery near modern-day Iraq, a 2,000-year-old electrochemical cell capable of generating electrical current. In 1901, divers recovered the Antikythera mechanism from a Roman shipwreck, an analog computer from 100 BC that calculated astronomical positions and eclipses with precision we could not match until the 14th century. At Pumapunku in Bolivia, stone blocks weighing over 100 tons were cut with tolerances of 50 micrometers, precision requiring diamond-tipped tools and computer-guided machinery. Official archaeology dates these ruins to 536 AD, but geological evidence suggests they are over 12,000 years old, placing them before the Great Flood. The flood was not divine punishment for human wickedness. It was a genetic reset. The Nephilim were corrupting human DNA at such a fundamental level that the Creator intervened to preserve the original human design. Genesis chapter 6 verse 9 says, "Noah was chosen because he was perfect in his generations." The Hebrew word is tamim, which means unblemished or genetically pure. Noah's DNA had not been corrupted by Nephilim interbreeding, but the text includes a terrifying phrase, and also afterward. The Nephilim DNA survived the flood. How? Through Noah's son Ham. Ancient Jewish texts name Ham's wife as Naamah, described as a descendant of Cain and the Watchers. When Ham's son Canaan was cursed by Noah, it was not for Ham's sin of seeing his father naked. That surface reading misses the deeper truth. Canaan carried the corrupted bloodline. His descendants became the Canaanite nations, the Anakim, Rephaim, Emim, and Zamzumim. The Bible describes these people as giants. When Moses sent 12 spies into Canaan, they returned with this report from Numbers chapter 13 verse 33. We saw the Nephilim there. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. Goliath of Gath stood 9 feet 9 inches tall. He had 4 brothers, all giants, all killed by King David's warriors. The city of Gath was a Nephilim stronghold, but before they were destroyed, the Canaanite giants built structures that still stand today, structures that modern engineering cannot replicate. The stone blocks at Baalbek in Lebanon weigh up to 1,650 tons each. The largest crane in the world today can lift 1,200 tons, and it requires months of preparation and specialized infrastructure. Yet these blocks were quarried, transported, and placed with such precision that you cannot slide a piece of paper between them. Who moved them? The official answer is Romans, but Romans documented everything they built, and Baalbek appears in no Roman construction records, because the platform was already there when Romans arrived. They simply built a temple on top of ruins they could not explain. So the Nephilim were real. They were hybrids created by fallen angels and human women. They ruled as kings before the flood. They were destroyed, but their bloodline survived through Canaan. And that bloodline continued through history, carefully preserved by families who understood what they carried. Which brings us to the present day and the families who rule our world. 13 bloodline families control approximately 80% of global wealth. This is not conspiracy theory. This is documented through corporate ownership records, central banking systems, and genealogical research. These families are Rothschild, Rockefeller, DuPont, Russell, Onassis, Kennedy, Collins, Astor, Freeman, Lee, Reynolds, the Merovingian royal lines, and the British royal family. What unites them? They obsessively track their genealogy back thousands of years. They intermarry within a closed network of families. They practice rituals and maintain traditions that trace back to ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt. And they carry Rh negative blood at rates far exceeding the general population. The Merovingian dynasty ruled France from 450 to 750 AD. They claimed descent from Jesus Christ, spawning legends of the Holy Grail as a bloodline rather than a cup. But older Merovingian texts reveal a different origin story. They claimed their founding king was born from the union of a French queen and the Kinotaur, a sea creature with 5 horns. This was not allegory. This was their claim to divine right. They were hybrids, descended from non-human entities, therefore entitled to rule over pure humans. Merovingian kings never cut their hair, believing their power resided in their long hair, exactly like Samson in the Bible, whose supernatural strength left him when his hair was cut. The Egyptian pharaohs practiced brother-sister incest for 30 dynasties. Official Egyptology claims this was to keep the royal bloodline pure. But pure from what? From human contamination. They were preserving non-human DNA. Akhenaten, the heretic pharaoh, had an elongated skull, feminine hips, and physical characteristics that do not match any known human population. In 2010, geneticists analyzed DNA from King Tutankhamun's mummy. They found genetic markers that do not exist in any catalogued human ethnic group. The study was published, then quietly buried in supplementary data that required specialized access to retrieve. The British royal family traces its lineage back to King David of Israel through carefully maintained genealogical records. King David's ancestry goes back to Judah, whose mother Tamar was a Canaanite, potentially carrying Nephilim genetics. During the coronation of British monarchs, they sit upon the coronation chair, which holds the stone of scone, also called the stone of destiny. Tradition claims this is the same stone that Jacob used as a pillow when he dreamed of angels ascending and descending a ladder to heaven. Why would modern royalty care about a 3,000-year-old stone? Because it represents their claim to a throne that predates all nations, the throne of the Nephilim kings who ruled Earth before the flood. These families do not simply hoard wealth, they preserve genetics. There are private blood banks maintained by elite families, not for medical emergencies but for genetic archiving. The Svalbard Global Seed Vault in Norway contains backup copies of seeds from every plant species on Earth. It is funded by the Rockefeller Foundation and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Official purpose: agricultural insurance against global catastrophe. But there is a parallel project few know about. In Switzerland, Lonza Bioscience operates a genetic vault storing human genetic material from specific family lines. Not random humans, specific bloodlines. Why preserve seeds and DNA separately from the general population? Because they are preparing for an event that will require rebuilding civilization with specific genetic stock. These families gather annually in rituals that mainstream media dismisses as social networking. The Bohemian Grove in California hosts the global elite every July. They perform a ceremony called the Cremation of Care before a 40-foot stone owl statue. The owl represents Moloch, the Canaanite deity who required child sacrifice. Leaked footage shows robed figures conducting mock human sacrifice rituals. They claim it is theater. But why would the most powerful people on Earth engage in theater that mimics ancient Nephilim worship? At Yale University, the Skull and Bones Society inducts 15 new members each year. The initiation requires lying in a coffin and confessing complete sexual history. This is not hazing. This is bloodline verification, ensuring no genetic contamination through unauthorized breeding. Members include 3 presidents, Supreme Court justices, CIA directors, and captains of industry. Membership is hereditary. You do not earn entry through achievement. You inherit it through blood. The Bilderberg Group meets annually in secret locations. Attendance is by invitation only. Media is banned. Topics discussed shape global policy for the coming year. Attendees are not selected by merit or democratic process. They are selected by genealogy. These are not social clubs or professional networks. These are bloodline preservation societies, ensuring Nephilim genetics remain in control of global power structures. And they are following a plan to prepare Earth for the return of their ancestors. In August 2007, the SETI Institute detected a signal from the direction of HD 164095, a star system 94 light-years from Earth. The signal was so powerful, it required a Type II civilization on the Kardashev scale, meaning a civilization capable of harnessing the total energy output of their star. NASA's public statement called it probably nothing, but leaked documents tell a different story. The signal contained mathematical patterns, prime number sequences that do not occur naturally. When researchers compared these patterns to ancient texts, they found matches with descriptions in the Book of Enoch of how watchers communicated across dimensional barriers. That same year, an unprecedented series of visits occurred to Antarctica. In November 2016, then Secretary of State John Kerry traveled to Antarctica during the final days of a contentious presidential election. Why would the top diplomat abandon critical duties to visit a frozen wasteland? Astronaut Buzz Aldrin visited Antarctica and was medically evacuated days later. Before his evacuation, he tweeted, "We are all in danger. It is evil itself." The tweet was deleted within hours. Aldrin later claimed his account was hacked. Then Patriarch Kirill, the head of the Russian Orthodox Church, visited Antarctica, the first time a church leader of his rank had ever made the journey. What were they shown? Satellite thermal imaging has revealed massive anomalies beneath the Antarctic ice sheet. Structures, not geological formations, structures with right angles, corridors, and chambers covering an area larger than Manhattan. These structures sit 2 miles beneath ice that formed 12,000 years ago, meaning whatever is down there predates the ice itself. It predates recorded human civilization. It predates the Great Flood. Thermal signatures suggest areas of warmth within these structures, as if something is generating heat deep beneath the ice, as if something is waking up. Since 2010, medical journals have documented a 340% increase in children born with extraordinary abilities. Hyperthymesia, the ability to remember every day of their lives in perfect detail. Tetrachromacy, the ability to see 100 million colors instead of the 1 million that normal humans perceive. Savant syndrome appearing in children without autism, children who can perform complex mathematical calculations instantly or speak multiple languages without instruction. The common factor in most of these cases, Rh-negative blood. These are not random mutations. Mutations do not increase by 340% in a single decade. This is activation. Dormant DNA sequences are waking up, and they are waking up because something is calling to them. Look at what has been built in the past 2 decades. The One World Trade Center in New York stands exactly 1,776 feet tall. That number commemorates the year the Illuminati was founded in Bavaria and the year America declared independence. But the building's design is more revealing. It is a modern ziggurat, the same architectural design as the Tower of Babel. The European Parliament building in Strasbourg, France, was deliberately designed to resemble an unfinished tower. The architect admitted the Tower of Babel was the inspiration. Why would modern architects reference a biblical story of human rebellion against God? Because they are announcing the plan, humanity will once again unite under a single government and attempt to reach the heavens. The Tower of Babel was stopped by God confusing human languages. This time, they have technology to translate languages instantly. This time, they believe they will succeed. In Switzerland, the Large Hadron Collider operates on the site of ancient Apolliacum, a Roman temple dedicated to Apollo. In Greek, Apollo is Apollyon. In Hebrew, Apollyon is Abaddon, the angel of the abyss, the destroyer. Revelation chapter 9 verse 11 identifies him as the king of demonic locusts that torment humanity during the tribulation. The Collider's stated purpose is to discover the fundamental particles of reality. But lead scientists have openly stated their goal is to open portals to other dimensions. They are not speaking metaphorically. They are attempting to breach the dimensional barriers that separate our reality from the realm where the Watchers were imprisoned after the flood. Physical signs are accelerating. Mass animal deaths plague every continent. Birds fall from the sky by the thousands. Fish wash ashore by the millions. Mainstream science blames pollution or climate change, but cannot explain why these events are increasing exponentially. The Earth's magnetic field is destabilizing. The magnetic North Pole is now moving 50 kilometers per year. For centuries, it moved 10 kilometers per year. This is a 5-fold acceleration with no natural explanation. Ancient texts describe signs preceding the return of the Nephilim. Signs in the heavens, signs on earth, the sun and moon darkened, the seas roaring. The James Webb Space Telescope, launched in December 2021 as the most powerful observatory ever constructed. Official mission: study distant galaxies and exoplanets. But here is what they do not publicize. 67% of the telescope's findings have been immediately classified. This classification rate is unprecedented in the history of space exploration. What did it see? Former NASA employees have leaked that the telescope is not randomly surveying space. It is targeting specific star systems, systems mentioned in ancient Sumerian astronomy texts, systems the Watchers descended from according to the Book of Enoch. Everything is in place. The infrastructure is ready. The bloodline families are positioned. The signs are manifesting. But here is what they do not want you to understand. Here is what they fear most. You are not powerless. Your DNA, your consciousness, your soul is the one thing the Nephilim kings cannot control without your permission. And there is a reason they have been working for 6,000 years to corrupt it. Spiritual law governs this dimension. Fallen angels, demons, and Nephilim entities cannot fully possess or control a human being without consent. This is why every ancient Nephilim system required worship. Worship is not about ego gratification for these entities. Worship is legal consent. When you bow to an idol, you are granting spiritual authority over your soul. Modern consent mechanisms are more subtle but equally binding. Terms and conditions you do not read but click. Agree. Genetic testing companies like 23andMe, funded by Google, that upload your DNA to cloud servers. You gave consent. Biometric data collection through facial recognition, fingerprint scanners, iris scans. You gave consent. When you surrender your genetic information, you are giving permission for genetic manipulation. The mRNA technology deployed globally in 2021 represents a threshold moment. The technology works by inserting new genetic instructions into your cells. Official purpose: train your immune system to recognize pathogens. Undisclosed capability: alter genetic expression, potentially activating dormant DNA sequences. Jesus warned in Matthew chapter 24, verse 37, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man." What defined Noah's days? Genetic corruption of humanity by Nephilim interbreeding. The coming days will mirror that corruption. Technology now exists to rewrite human DNA, making humans compatible with Nephilim consciousness, preparing bodies as vessels for the returning kings. Inside your brain sits the pineal gland, a pine cone-shaped organ the size of a grain of rice. Ancient cultures called it the seat of the soul, the third eye, the gateway between physical and spiritual realms. Modern science has discovered the pineal gland produces dimethyltryptamine, DMT, the molecule that allows consciousness to perceive dimensions beyond the physical. When activated, the pineal gland grants spiritual sight, the ability to perceive deception, resist psychological manipulation, and access higher consciousness. Which is why governments worldwide add fluoride to water supplies. Fluoride calcifies the pineal gland, hardening it with mineral deposits that block its function. This is not accidental. This is strategic warfare against human consciousness. You can fight back. Remove fluoride from your water through reverse osmosis filtration or distillation. Avoid processed foods containing bromide and fluoride compounds. Supplement with iodine, chlorella, and spirulina, which bind to heavy metals and remove them from your system. Practice sun gazing during the first and last 15 minutes of daylight, which stimulates pineal gland function through non-damaging light frequencies. Never submit your DNA to testing companies. Your genetic information is worth more than money because it can be used to create bioweapons, targeted specifically to your genetic code or to track your descendants for generations. Refuse biometric scans whenever possible. Airports are implementing mandatory facial recognition. This is DNA-adjacent identification building databases that connect your genetics to your location and behavior patterns. Your body generates an electromagnetic field measurable up to 15 feet away using standard magnetometers. This field is your spiritual armor, what Ephesians chapter 6 verse 11 calls the full armor of God. Strengthen it through grounding, walking barefoot on earth to transfer electrons that stabilize your field. Avoid electromagnetic pollution from Wi-Fi routers and 5G towers that disrupt your natural frequency. Practice meditation and prayer, which generate coherent electromagnetic patterns that resist external manipulation. Everything vibrates at specific frequencies. Your thoughts, emotions, and DNA all emit measurable frequencies. Fear vibrates between 0.2 and 2.2 Hz. Love vibrates at 528 Hz, the exact frequency laboratories use to repair damaged DNA. The Nephilim agenda requires humanity to remain in fear frequency. This is why media constantly broadcasts fear, wars, pandemics, economic collapse, climate catastrophe. Fear makes you controllable. Love makes you sovereign. Consciously choose love frequency through gratitude, forgiveness, and compassion. This restructures your DNA at the molecular level, making you incompatible with Nephilim possession. The Book of Enoch provides the solution. Call upon the name of the Most High, the Creator consciousness that predates the Nephilim. This is not religion. This is technology. Speaking names of power creates frequency vibrations. The Tetragrammaton, the 4 Hebrew letters YHWH representing God's name, produces a specific frequency when pronounced correctly. This frequency disrupts Nephilim entities. This is why the pronunciation was removed from history. Ancient Hebrew was written without vowels. Rabbis claimed the correct pronunciation of God's name was lost. It was not lost. It was hidden. Humanity is separating into 2 groups. Jesus described this in Matthew chapter 24, verses 40 to 41. 2 will be in the field, 1 will be taken, and 1 left. 2 women will be grinding at the mill, 1 will be taken and 1 left. This separation is not about religious salvation. This is about DNA. Those whose DNA remains uncorrupted, spiritually, genetically, and electromagnetically, will transition to the next phase of human evolution. Those whose DNA has been corrupted through consent, genetic manipulation, or frequency entrainment will become vessels for the returning Nephilim kings. This separation is occurring now. Every choice you make either preserves your original human design or consents to corruption. When the Nephilim kings fully return, they will not announce themselves as conquerors. They will present themselves as saviors during a time of engineered global chaos. They will offer solutions to climate change, disease, war, aging, and death. Transhumanism is the preparation, merging human consciousness with artificial intelligence, uploading minds into digital immortality. The masses will worship them. Revelation chapter 13 verse 4 asks, "Who is like the beast? Who can wage war against it?" But those who maintained original DNA and activated their pineal glands will perceive the truth. They will see the Nephilim kings as what they are, parasitic entities feeding on human consciousness and genetic material. You are not an accident. If this information resonates with you, your DNA contains the uncorrupted code. You are a remnant, a genetic holdout, a soul that refused consent across multiple generations. Your mission now is clear. Wake up others before the system silences you. Protect your bloodline. If you have children, teach them these truths before indoctrination corrupts them. Hold the frequency of love, creating a protective field that other awakened souls can locate and connect to. The timeline is accelerating. One world government is forming through the World Health Organization Pandemic Treaty, granting supranational authority. One world currency is forming through central bank digital currencies that will track and control every transaction. One world religion is forming through interfaith movements, erasing doctrinal boundaries. Genetic databases are compiled. Neural link technology is launching. Every system required for total control is activating simultaneously. Multiple prophecy systems converge on the same timeline. The Mayan calendar, Hindu Kali Yuga, biblical Daniel timeline, and Hopi prophecies all indicate we are in the final generation before full Nephilim manifestation. The window is 2025 to 2030. This is why everything feels accelerated, why time seems to be speeding up, why the elite are rushing their agenda with increasing desperation. But here is the hope they do not want you to know. The Nephilim kings fear you. They have always feared pure human DNA combined with awakened consciousness. This is why David defeated Goliath. It was not a miracle. It was a demonstration that awakened human consciousness defeats Nephilim genetics. You contain the original human design, the image of the Creator. The Nephilim are corrupted copies, genetic abominations requiring parasitism to survive. You have the source code. They only have hacked versions. Your DNA, when activated through love frequency and pineal gland awakening, is the most powerful force in this dimension. The Nephilim kings are rising again. The ancient bloodline that NASA fears is awakening. But it is not their bloodline they fear most. It is yours. You were designed to rule this planet. They stole that destiny 6,000 years ago through genetic manipulation and spiritual deception. Now they are returning to complete what they started. But you possess something they can never take unless you freely surrender it: your consent. Protect your DNA, activate your pineal gland, raise your frequency. Refuse their mark, refuse their system, refuse their new world order. Because when the Nephilim kings fully manifest, there will be two types of humans: those who chose to remain human and those who chose to become something else. Choose wisely. Choose now. Share this information with everyone you love, because time is running out, and the war for your soul is already here. I will see you in the next video if we are still allowed to speak freely. Stay awake.